Hi, I'm Deputy Janovic with KSL News Radio, and two words, school closures. Every time you mention those two words, it can spin up parents, it gives kids anxiety. But from the data that we're looking at here at KSL News Radio, it would seem like school closures are going to be a wave of the future for certain parts of Utah. Let me walk you through the information that we found when it became to demographics. In particular, 5 to 17-year-olds. That population is starting to dwindle in certain parts of Utah for two reasons. One, the birth rate's going down. The second reason is in some areas, houses are so expensive that young families can't afford to buy into certain areas, especially like Salt Lake County. Let me give you some examples. In the Granite School District, kind of in the heart of Salt Lake County, there are 3 schools that will not reopen this school year. The Granite District reports that it has lost 8,000 students in the last decade, and that they've already closed some 6 schools. They expect to have to close another one this fall. They need to close probably another 5 over the next 5 to 7 years. That's just one school district. Salt Lake School District, which is looking at the potential closure of 7 schools, haven't made any decisions yet, but they're in the process of making those decisions. Their demographic report from 2017 to 2027 shows that they're going to have a decrease of 2,200 elementary school kids. And over the next 10 years, middle schools will also drop off by almost 30%, and then high schools, those grades are projected to also decrease by another 23%. So you can see where some areas, particularly in Salt Lake County, will see a significant drop-off, and they'll have to make some tough decisions in those school districts as to which schools to keep open and which ones to close, and then which ones to combine, where they have to, realign boundaries. But if you go down south, for example, in Washington County, according to the Kempsey Gardner Institute, which does a ton of demographic research, there's going to be like an explosion of school-age kids. In the next 25 to 30 years, they expect to gain 16,000 school-age kids in the St. George and surrounding areas down in southern Utah. Cache County up north, where Logan is, they expect to gain 9,000 students. Utah County, they're the winner here. They will increase by 73,000 school-aged kids by the year 2060. Now, there's a lot of numbers here, not intended to freak anyone out. But when you start looking at some of these numbers of 73,000 kids in the Utah County area over the next couple of decades, they're going to be building schools. But in Salt Lake County, there's going to be some areas that are losing kids, and they're going to be shutting down schools. So we asked Ben Horsley of the Granite School District to join us for a conversation about what that looks like when schools get closed.
We had an independent demographer come in several years ago, pre-COVID, and told us we needed to close about 10 to 12 elementary schools over the next decade. We've gone through that. We have a fairly lengthy public input process. It takes about a year to close the school on a calendar year basis. We start in January and make final decisions in the November, December timeframe. Last year, we went through 90 different public meetings, and we ended up closing 3 elementary schools. So in total, we've closed 6 elementary schools. We have 1 additional school that we're studying this year for potential closure, and we expect to close another 5 to 6 in subsequent years.
Ben Horsley of the Granite School District. If you're kind of new to the area, you're not sure where the Granite School District is, it's kind of like would you say like the sort of the middle of Salt Lake County, Ben, east to west?
21st south, 62nd south, mountain to mountain.
Yeah, Holiday to West Valley City. You got a lot of kids there, but you've lost, I read some reports that lost like 8,000 students in the last several years. Is that an accurate number?
Yeah, we peaked out around 78,000 in the early 90s. We're down to about 58,000. We actually expect to lose another 2,000 to 3,000. So we expect to kind of mature out at about 55,000. A lot of people say, what's going on? This is very normal. Populations ebb and flow, they peak, and then they settle about 2/3 of their max population generally. We see that in school populations, and we see that in the district-wide population.
Can you give me the pitch why closing a school is better?
Yeah, small schools are not great for kids anymore. It used to be the notion is everybody would know everybody's names, and But if you think about parents want options, they want choices, they want to be able to be in a supportive community. If you have only 280 kids, which is one of the schools we closed last year, had only 280 kids in it, that's less than 2 teachers per grade level, which means that if you don't like one of the teachers, it's not a really great fit for your student. In some instances, there might not be another teacher at that grade level, or it's a split class, which nobody loves. So it's very difficult on that front. You don't have a lot of parents involved in the PTA and other community organizations, so there's a lack of support. And our school staffs get very strained in our small school locations because they're supplicating all these other job responsibilities, ground duty and lunch supervision among a smaller staff, if that makes sense.
Speaking right now to Ben Horsley of the Granite School District regarding the demographic crisis that is causing school districts to take serious look at the elementary school level and decide which schools need to stay open and which schools need to close. The Salt Lake City School District, they're meeting tonight about the potential for 7 schools to, maybe not all of them, but some of them may eventually end up closing in that district. Granite, as you just heard Ben say, has had a number of school closures. What does the future hold then for Granite, Ben, at this point? Do you think it eventually trickle up, if you will, to middle and high school closures?
Not at this point in time, and those decisions are decades away. It's important to understand that while the vast majority of Granite District is a mature area, there's not room for new growth, and we have stabilized that portions of Magna and that western portion of the Ochre Mountains will have a tremendous amount of development. And so we actually expect that we'll be opening new schools in those areas. In many of these decisions, it'd be great if we could just pick up a school building and move it to a new location. But obviously that's not how that works. And so we do need to look at closures in more mature areas and look down the road to potential growth in other areas. But this is, again, very normal. Populations do tend to stabilize, again, about 2/3 of their max capacity. And that's where we'll end up. We're going to end up right around 55,000 kids for the long term.
When schools close down, when you close them down, what happens to the property? What do you do with the old school?
Well, I know Granite's philosophy. We closed a high school back in 2009. That was not a great experience. We tried to work with the city, South Salt Lake, to purchase that. There were some difficulties in them getting the funding to be able to do so, and invariably the property turned over to private development and for a new library for the county. That was a one-time benefit to the district of about $10 million of that property. We've decided as a general rule in our district that we're not going to sell property anymore. There's a lot of opportunities. There's one of our school closures, Ochre Hills Elementary, ended up being a lifeboat for one of our other schools while it was getting rebuilt. And we're looking at other opportunities to maintain the open space with local communities. For instance, a couple of schools, Holiday is working with us on Spring Lane Elementary, which was recently closed, to turn it into park space, and they'll maintain it, but we'll still own the land. So there's lots of those kind of conversations happening. In any case, under the law, we always have to give first right of refusal to the local municipality, in this case, the city itself, to purchase the property. So there is that caveat for the land.
But if they refuse, then the district holds on to the property. Is that how it goes, Ben?
We can, and we are choosing to do so, but we could sell it at that point in time to the highest bidder.
Do you rip down the building?
One thing you can see in a lot of these closure decisions, the building facility condition is a huge issue. And so a lot of times we're closing facilities that we just don't have the ability to rebuild, and it doesn't make sense to do so.
Ben Horsley, thank you for joining us from Granite School District.